Hello, friends. It's been a minute. I've missed playing and singing on here very dearly. I love the routine of it, and I'm so excited to get back to that. But in the interim, I wanted to tell you about another musical venture I went on recently. As a child, I dreamed of a life filled with music. I started writing music when I was 7 years old. I had no training, just a notebook I could write lyrics down in, and I wrote them down obsessively. I always dreamed of what the future would look like, with music being the main star guiding everything else. I started picking up instruments casually at 13 years old and got some formal piano training in college, and that's about it. I listened to music obsessively, paid attention to the scores of movies more than the actual film, and I wrote lyrics and melodies and full songs obsessively for years. I felt and still feel insatiable when it comes to music. I lacked the formal training, but what I lacked there I made up with my force of will. The main thing I had to work off of was my innate need to create music. For me, music is something that illuminates everything else, makes the world more clear, and makes it make sense. And so it became everything to me. This past year has been one for really diving into practice and strengthening my skills. I've been able to do a lot with music by just feeling it out and by just feeling intuitively what works. Oftentimes when I write, I will just hear everything in my head and be able to find that on whatever instrument I'm writing with, and I just follow that. That's taken me a long way. But this past year, I've really wanted to improve through intentionally studying music and my instruments, and sitting down for my practice so that I can expand what I'm capable of. It's been many months of practicing my instruments daily, and I keep seeing improvements in my abilities everywhere. It's pretty amazing to watch, because I always wanted that as a child. I just didn't know how to teach myself, and didn't know how to ask my parents to put me in lessons. I just assumed they would say no. Not having formal training until adulthood has oftentimes made me feel quite behind. But even so, there's no better time than now, and I just remind myself of that daily. You may or may not know this, but I'm also an actor. I love theater and film, and I love to watch movies. When I watch movies, though, I'm usually paying a bit more attention to the score than to everything else. I love film scores. My top Spotify artist 3 years in a row was Alexander Desplat, thanks to how magnificent the Grand Budapest Hotel soundtrack is. Film scores inspire me endlessly with how they can create the entire world the movie exists in, and still go entirely unnoticed because of how they move the story forward. A good film score is like breathing. You only notice it when you're looking for it. I've always been fascinated by this. When I fixated on film scores most, I started picturing my own life as a movie. Every time I glanced a certain direction, it was purposeful, and that purpose was getting the exact right shot. On my friend's face, on the row of red brick townhomes, of the leaves in the middle of autumn, orange and golden and dressing the sidewalk. My own life began to feel like a film, and I would play film scores while I lived my day-to-day in this romantic sort of way. I thought ambiently in the back of my mind what it would be like if I scored a film. What would it be like to fill a world with all of the sounds that I can hear from my mind, shaping them very specifically for something that already exists and that needs something very specific to be just right, and essentially breathing a whole new life into the film. I thought about the music I would compose for my own life, and what that may sound like, and what that would result in happening in my day-to-day, and what colors the world would take on in those particular moments, and how everything would move around me. And then this year, my partner wrote and directed their thesis film about a little goblin who throws his human friend a birthday party. I'm a writer of plays, poetry, short stories, essays, and was so happy being involved in the story editing process. I got to act in it as well, and was pretty involved with the other more practical sides of the process. But what I wasn't expecting, what I hoped for but wasn't expecting, was composing for the film. I got to take on the role of music director, and got to write so many original compositions for the film, and work directly with my partner to shape my impulses into what served the film best. For a lot of the compositions, I was spot on the first go, and created something that my partner loved, and that they didn't know was exactly what that particular moment needed. And for other compositions, there was a lot of discussion and back and forth, talking about what they were looking for and what I thought the moment needed and my first impulses, and trying to find what the sound was that helped shape the story in the most natural way possible. For a lot of the writing process, I would watch the scenes of the movie over and over and over again until it told me what it needed, until I had even a whisper of a sound going through my mind, and then I would lay that out as a track, try all these different instrument sounds until I found what felt right, and then built it from there. It felt like painting, and I got into this sort of flow state with it. I stayed up into the dead of night many nights, creating in an all-consuming way. I felt fulfilled in a very rare way that I don't get to experience all of the time. It was incredible. The point is that this was a monumental moment in my life. I've written larger bodies of work of music before as someone who writes musicals, but never quite like this. Never for something pre-existing, for something that wasn't mine to begin with. It was life-changing, and I created some music I'm really proud of. At some point down the line, my partner is planning to make an extended cut of this film, and with that there will be more music. The hope is to release the soundtrack as an album down the line because that would just be so special and wonderful. I loved working on this project. It was without a doubt magical. I hope to score more films in the future, but even if I don't, I'm just so grateful and so happy to have had this. It was a dream come true. Thank you for listening to my little story. Until next time.
You make me feel braver every day. Will you please come out to play with me? We can head on to the park and climb up every branch we see. We can make this place our own. We can live amongst the trees, you and me.